Hi, I'm Antonia Cornaro, your moderator for this today's webinar. It's the second webinar in our series, Innovation, Inspiration, and Demonstration of Underground Spaces. And today we will move with you beyond the obvious. I'm live here on location in the Hagerbach Test Gallery in the HUS. So where am I? And who will we meet today? This is the HUS. Oh, who do we have here? Rudy Hilty. Rudy Hilty is the co-founder of the HUS.institute and of the System Change Foundation, a think tank from Liechtenstein. Rudy, please tell us why you chose this as your base.
Hi, Antonia. Thank you. Yeah, we started the System Change Foundation and the HUS in Liechtenstein to reimagine the future. And we are strongly convinced that everything what you can imagine is real. In a small country, you can think in an ecosystem and without higher national interest. For that reason, we said with this imagination or with this power to imagine, we bring together a network for systemic change based on decision makers, opinion leaders, creative minds, policy makers, and experts. And these people come together under a roof in a HUS, in the HUS. And here in the mountain, we have a very inspiring place to think big and to think different. That was a reason why we said we created it here together with the Hagerbach Stollen. And next to the mountain HUS here, we have the Opera HUS in Berlin and the School HUS in Cape Town. And this is a very strong and powerful place to think different. And for us, we love it to be here and that we can be here.
It's really wonderful. So Rudy is our co-host of today's webinar, and we're going to have a special focus on the HUS.institute and what the HUS is doing here in Hagerbach, and how we're going to create systemic change for various initiatives that concern our future, the future of our planet, and the future of humanity overall. And I'm so pleased to be screening this live from the HUS. We were going to have a panel debate inside, but it's a little bit too small as we need to keep the physical distancing due to Corona. But we're so happy to be still screening it live here, and we have several very good locations for you set up today to see the various aspects that we're working on and thinking about. And Rudy himself is often here now and has his creative mind thinking here inside this HUS. So this is also part of Mission Earth First, which we will introduce to you in a bit. And I think I want to tell the audience, first of all, welcome to all of you from all over the world for joining us in such high numbers. And we want to tell you that you will have the opportunity to participate via the messaging function in your webinar, and also you will be polled in between. We will hear from Rudy more afterwards about the Systemic Change Foundation and the HUS. And over to you now, Han.
Thank you, Antonia. We prepared a nice Mentimeter for you so that we can get some audience participation. To use Mentimeter, you will need to use your mobile phone or another second device. You can go to www.menti.com and then use the code that is on the screen to take part in this audience participation. We have 129 attendees at the moment, so it'd be great if you could actually participate in this little audience. Yep, I can see people coming online in Mentimeter, so I'll go to the next slide, which is a quote from the book Antonia Conaro and myself wrote. When creating underground spaces, we argue for the creation of lovable spaces. And my first question to you is, could you describe underground livability in 1 or 2 words? Just type them in and we will see them appearing here on the screen. So just describe in 1 word what for you means. What does it mean, underground livability? Does it need to be attractive? Or there you go. And we have the first results coming in. This is really, really good. So keep them coming. We've got 132 attendants at the moment, so we're still climbing. People are still joining us. Be good to see where this leads to. The word future is doing quite well. Sustainability, cozy, safe. I think some of these things we'll be talking about later on in the webinar. Creative opportunities, the need of light, the lack of natural light, but cozy, safe, future, and sustainability, and exciting. Those are the words that are leading at the moment. But as I speak, exciting has already gone again. We'll just keep it running for a little bit. Okay, we seem to be there. If you haven't been able to join in this question, don't worry. We have a second one coming up, which will move to. I need to account for a little bit of lag and delay in the system, but I think we have a beautiful word cloud coming up now. Okay, right. So let's move on to the next question, which is a quote from Pablo Picasso: "Everything you can imagine is real," and that is really something that is driving Rudy when he talks about systemic change. And we were just wondering if you want to describe systemic change in 1 word. What does systemic change mean to you, or which word pops into your head immediately when you hear systemic change? So obviously this is a bit more difficult. There you go. The results are coming in again. Opportunity, urgent, sustainability, evolution, necessary, new. This is looking very good, very good. So there is a certain urgency. There's something to do with evolution. It's new. And again, I think Antonia will come back to some of these words, most probably in the dialogue table that we will have later on. Okay, well, this is where we're going to wrap it up because we need to move forward in the program. Thank you very much for participating and being so engaged. I hope you feel you are really become part of this webinar now, and we will start switching back to Antonia in a few seconds. There we go. Back to you, Antonia.
Thanks, Han. Thanks for the participation and your engagement to the audience. That's very exciting to hear your thoughts about these questions and terms. So we will now go to our part on underground livability. We had a group of architectural students from the University of Liechtenstein visit Hagerbach facility last month. And they have in their current semester a studio dealing with the underground as a reservoir. And we've asked them to think along with us about a certain cavern in this facility that is not being used and how it could be turned into a livable space, into a Mars hotel, for instance. How could one design it in a way that it's not claustrophobic and that it's really a pleasure to be in? See the short video. Over to you, Han.
And the main idea is that we put a few capsules into this underground space, and all those capsules have different usage. So there are two main capsules which are used for sleeping, and there, for instance, could sleep parents and their children, or also two couples or whatever. Here at the when you enter, next to the door there is a toilet, which is hidden behind a curved wall. And on this side we would have a little garderobe to hang up your jackets, or you put your shoes there. Then we have two sinks where you can brush your teeth or wash your hands. And then also the shower, which you can shower in this part, and then in this part you can put on your clothes.
We have the entrance area, which is bringing you down from the streets of the hallways, and will just bring you down at the first step. Then you experience how underground living will be, or what's special about underground. And then we thought about also this glass construction, that you come into a new area where you live in, and we don't want to disturb this really beautiful cave situation. That's why we just put columns and platforms in a really in the corner, or we can also expand it if we need more space or more platforms. But we don't want it to destroy the area of feeling the atmosphere of the cave-like.
Wanted to create a new atmosphere, and then you get in the second room, and in the second room you have another form. We wanted not to create furniture. The furniture is made out of this shape here, and the shape is transparent. And we divided the room in two floors. At the second floor here we have water. It's like a little swimming pool, and the idea is that we light it from the bottom here, and that the waves of the water are reflected on the ceiling here.
So we were creating this room up there in a special mezzanine, where you can appreciate the force of the rocks and the mountain. But we imagine this as a device that provides you light and water, and we are thinking as water as the thing that is breaking the silence, and the light that is breaking the darkness. So what we are trying to express with these drawings is that light and sound is nothing underground till it touches the rocks, and then the rocks are giving you this sensation of, and these variations of light and the sound that is happening inside. So this is kind of the concept.
So you saw a short excerpt of the students of the University of Architecture, the University of Liechtenstein's architectural department, who were visiting here last month. And I have the pleasure to have 3 students here with me on location. So thanks for coming, Betul, Nikolai, and Samako. And they represent one of each team that was working on these concepts. And we will discuss the concept of underground livability a little bit with you and what your thoughts were when you were developing these concepts. And again, to the audience, if you have questions to them, you may put them in the chat now. And if we have time, we will happily select some of them. So maybe to you first, Nikolai, you were in a team of, I think, 4 students.
Yeah.
And what was your concept about, and what was your main idea and your main thoughts when you worked on it?
We were the second concept shown in the video, the underground living. And I think we had 2 main concepts. We wanted to show off or introduce what is being done in the spaces in these tunnels in Hagerbach. And we also wanted it to be a relaxing atmosphere. So we wanted to create a non-claustrophobic space.
Which I think you really achieved.
I think so too.
Hats off, because the students did not have a lot of time to think about a very sort of unusual space and convert it into something that is livable and habitable and pleasant to be in. Maybe to you, Betul, next. What were your main thoughts when you were working on this?
When we thought about a hotel about in Mars, we thought about to bring some capsules with some capsules who could be hanging up. So it was very interesting to bring up a concept like this, a capsule and hang it up, and to use it in a different way, to have capsules in a bedroom situation or like a bar situation, and you can just hang it up, and when you have to use it, you can just put it down and you can use it able. So it was just playing with the space. I think the main idea was like that, to have this situation.
Playing with the space, indeed. I think we see it here, right?
Exactly.
You have the hanging capsules. Maybe the camera can zoom in. And it was going to be very organic and fluid, and depending on how many people stay. And you have this feeling of lightness because you're suspended in air. So maybe to you next, Samako. Can you say something about your main idea and also what you felt when you were working on this quite strange task that we gave you that day?
That's true. We were trying to somehow make the space that the visitor can feel as if they are in the universe or the Mars, by providing the space with light, which is penetrates through the water and then transparent floor of the swimming pool. And yeah, we felt really unusual feeling when we came to Hagerbach. Before, we didn't have feeling that how it can be in the underground, or is it really possible to stay in underground, to live or whatever. So it makes us feeling that it's possible, and then it's possible to design something extraordinary.
Very good. I think you really managed that, and we're actually quite interested in taking these concepts further and really developing such a thing here in Hagerbach. Maybe Rudy, you want to say something about that? What your idea is when you were also observing when the students worked on these concepts?
Yeah, I think it's important. Everything starts here as a thought, right? And but the important thing is that we can create it as well. And that's the idea because we told the students just to think different, think big, and we will make it happen. And that's the idea as well here with, for example, with the Mars Hotel. So we will see it soon because we will plan it, that we will create it. And that's important to sometimes to think different, but to believe in the outcome because from a thought, you will start a discussion. From discussion, you start a project, and from the project, you create the work.
What I really liked is that the students played very much with the elements that we have here available, and they really all wanted the rock, the element of the rock, to be a central part of your schemes. And they played with light, and they played with water. I think all of your projects included water. Maybe back to Nikolai about your guys' project. Did you guys have water as a main feature as well?
Yes, yeah. The hallway or the entrance is a long corridor that leads you from the old mines into this room that is going to be the hotel room. And we wanted it to be an experience to walk through, almost like an exhibition space. So we wanted the water to come out of the walls because we know there's a lot of humidity underground, right? So we wanted the water to come out of the walls into this swimming area, which is like half of the corridor is water, and it's used to relax, and also like water is a good thing to have. It's good to look at. It's good for your health. I mean, everything is good.
Aesthetically pleasing and also mentally relieving. So the students very much worked on this, being this a bit of a Zen space where you really zone out of your everyday environment and you're in a different environment, you know. And I think you really all achieved that with your concept. I want to quickly know if there are any burning questions from the audience. Han,
no burning questions from the audience, Antonia. I do have someone who has actually congratulated the students, telling them great prototypes and concept drawings. So I think overall people are excited about the ideas that have been put forward. But I think it's time to move on to our next item, and maybe you just want to thank the students for their participation, and we can go to another good example of how we can start thinking differently.
As usual, too little time for such interesting topics, but I think you can all appreciate what the students came up with in a very short time, very creative minds, and we would love to have you back and develop these concepts further with you. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks to the University of Liechtenstein, and good luck with your ongoing projects there.
Thank you.
Over to you, Han.
Thank you, Antonia. And as I just said, we're now going to watch a presentation by Serge Amaye from Belgium, who is very much moving beyond the obvious with new concepts on how to grow food and how to produce food when humanity moves to other planets. But he also wants to talk about something he calls the variable climate biosphere, which is an attempt to recreate certain environmental circumstances in, for example, underground environments. So let's hear from Serge.
Hi, my name is Serge Amaye, and I'm the president of the Planet Mars Baking Society. which indeed may sound weird to you. I made a career as an executive for a Belgian producer of ingredients for the baking industry. Now, inspired by Elon Musk's idea for having one day a human colony with 1 million people on planet Mars, I thought it would be very rewarding to be there, the only baker. I sure would make a lot of dough. But for serious now, I was able to convince my former employer to invest in a simulation for a bakery on planet Mars. Now, I admit I knew nothing about the subject, and I decided that the people, now here you have a picture of the headquarters of Piratas, who are my sponsors, and to learn about how to bake a bread, and I knew very well that you had first to cultivate wheat in space, which is a challenge. And therefore I went to NASA, and with some persistence, I could get an interview with the top specialists there, Raymond Wheeler, Ralph Fritsche, and of course, Joya Massa, who is the leader of the band. I knew I would need a complete controlled environment, which means airtight, in which we would not use sunlight, no air from the outside. Everything inside had to be controlled. And I was fortunate enough to find a company that could produce something like that. They're called Urban Crop Solutions. They're in Belgium, and they specialize in closed environment vertical farming. Here you have one of their automated systems. Now, I came onto a program of the BBC in which they invited Stephen Hawking. And Stephen Hawking, I would say exactly like Elon Musk, said, well, we need a backup for our planet because this is not forever here. Well, the first cataclysm that Hawking mentioned, strangely enough, was plagues, pandemics we call them now. And he knew there always been, but he could not know that 2.5 years before we would have the COVID, this would come as fast, as soon as it has happened. And you see already with such a pandemic, what kind of havoc this can create. But he also warned us for solar flares. What are solar? To survive under the ground for a few days, no problem. For a few weeks, no problem. You can do that with the same technology that you would have in a submarine and even live for a year. The problem comes if humans would, let's say, on a planet like Mars, have to stay for many years. And therefore, together with my partners from Urban Crops, we have developed what is called the variable climate biosphere. This is a biosphere completely airtight, where you will have no interference of whatever is happening outside. That you control the temperature and the humidity is not really new, that exists. What is new is that you look at the sky, we simulate exactly the day as it passes on a certain point of our planet. And here we simulate that, and we can even do that in real time. So we can have that you see the sun first coming up with the spectrum of an upcoming sun over the day, and then it will go down, and then in the screen you will see the lights, and on the ceiling you will see the moon. Thank you for your attention.
Serge is actually watching the webinar, and I think he's given us some very interesting thoughts, but also has shown us that there are a lot of people out there who are already thinking about producing food in space, producing food in climate controlled environments, but also on how you could actually have a climate inside an underground facility or underground room that adapts to in such a way that you can maintain the circadian rhythms that are part of human biology and indeed also the biology of plants. So there we go. Back to you, Antonia.
Thanks so much. Thanks to Serge for his contribution. Very exciting what he's working on, and we hope he will become an active member of Mission Earth First. So we are here now with our panel members, and I have some big surprises for you here today. First of all, we have here Christoph Gabald. He's the co-founder of ClimateWorks, a Swiss organization dealing with CO2 reduction, and we will hear from him in a minute. He can't be here live, but he sent his robot to be with us. And I think that's quite a futuristic guest I have here today. Thanks for joining us, Christoph. And I want to also introduce to you Marcella Ruppli. She's a communication consultant and artist living in Switzerland, but originally from Mexico. And Marcella was in our testimonial video in the webinar 1, in case you've seen it, where we interviewed several actual people from different disciplines about their vision and their perception and their opinion on underground space. And I think Marcella was the one who coined the term, we need to move beyond the obvious. And this is actually what we named our webinar today. And I would love for Marcella to quickly say what she thought about when she said these words. Marcella.
Thank you, Antonia, and thank you for the invitation. I'm really glad to be here. And really, what I was meaning when I said thinking beyond the obvious or moving beyond the obvious, it was more of an invitation to everybody and not just the people who we've seen engaged in these great projects that you're presenting today, but also that the everyday person can take this as an invitation to rethink their role, their everyday role in this change and this new way that we need to imagine ourselves, the way we live, the way we interact with space, with each other, on our everyday interactions. And if you allow me, I'll leave you with an image that just came to mind, and it's like, you know, nature offers us these great things above ground, like a tree. But what we don't always think about when we look at a tree is the immense network of roots that it has underneath that is really sustaining it. And with that thought, I guess I can leave you to talk about the other projects that are going to be presented here. Thank you for the invitation.
Thanks, Marcella. This is precisely it. The network of roots underneath sustaining our life on the surface. And I want to quickly introduce now again and give him the word, Christoph Gabald from ClimeWorks, who, Christoph, could you please tell the audience what your organization works on and how you actually capturing CO2 out of the atmosphere to again store it underground and how that works?
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thank you for lending my voice, the body of the robot. I'm today taking the high corona safety and low carbon impact means of participating. I've never been in a robot. Thank you for that. Well, how are we connected to the underground? Underground is actually a word I'm using quite often. And like, why am I using the word quite often? ClimeWorks is building machines that capture CO2 from the air and store the CO2 permanently underground. Why on earth are we doing that? Well, as of today, as of the year 2020, there is scientific consensus and actually also consensus around the World Climate Council, IPCC, and many governments worldwide and companies and people that in order to achieve climate targets, to achieve the 1.5-degree target, it is necessary to remove CO2 from the air in a massive scale. So it's not, as of 2020, it's not sufficient to only reduce emissions, but since we have emitted already so much CO2, it is necessary to take CO2 back out of the air. And as mentioned, that has to be done on a massive scale. Currently, science talks about 15 billion tons of CO2 that need to be removed from the air, and that is too much of a quantity for any measure alone. Measures could be, for example, planting trees or like first saving trees, but there is sort of consensus that that will not be sufficient and need to be complemented by building machines that take it from the air and store it underground. Well, how does it work? Actually, very simple. we build, as mentioned, large machines. They are modular. You can imagine standard 40-foot shipping containers, and those shipping containers are equipped with standard ventilators, and those ventilators pull air through our containers. Inside the container is a filter that is, has a high affinity to CO2 and traps the CO2 on the surface. And in the second step, we're heating this material and such getting the CO2 back out of the filter. And then we can store it underground. We are currently storing it already underground. We're doing that in Iceland for two reasons. A, because the underground is very favorable for doing that in Iceland, for storing CO2 permanently, because in Iceland, we can turn the CO2, which is pumped underground into rock in a very fast way. So within a time duration of 2 years, 95% of the CO2 we are pumping underground is actually mineralizing, and in such it's made sure it's never coming out again. The second reason we're in Iceland is because there's a lot of renewable energy which we need in order to operate our machines or containers. Well, lastly, what's in for you? Currently, the model we are operating is that Climeworks is building those machines. We also own the machines and we do operate them. And we offer the service of, we call it CO2 removal, to everyone. We're offering that to people, to companies, as well as to governments. And I'm very happy to share with you that already almost 3,000 people worldwide, or like from 54 countries, which is roughly a fourth of our planet, signed up for a Climeworks removal service subscription. Several companies already subscribed, and I'm hopeful that soon governments will use that too. And with the holiday season ahead of us, I hope that all of you will choose meaningful presents and might find their way on our website where you can find it. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Christoph. I mean, I'm so impressed with you know, the way you implemented the CO2 capture and how it's really like taking off in a big way. We're very happy to have you here and share this with the entire world, what you're doing, and we hope many of you will listen to that and see what the underground is actually about in terms of how it can really be so important also for things for the environment like CO2 capture. Now, Rudy, you're a big systemic changer. You're in the game-changing business, right? So you're actually created a World Systemic Forum as an antidote to the World Economic Forum. So I imagine you work with companies like Climeworks to change the system, to change established industries and established mechanisms that actually guide our environmental policies. We have the means. How can we change that we're actually applying them?
I think first of all, we have to accept these new realities, new logics, and it needs the power to imagine and to believe in it. I think that's the starting point for sure. That's why we always say think without the box, because there is no box anymore. Climate change do not know any borders. So the box is not here anymore in the digital modern era. In the industrial age, it was something else. But we are in a new reality, and we have now to accept this reality. And system change is more than only about technology. It's as well about behavior change and policy change. And as well with Christoph, we talked a lot about it. He mentioned the B2G, business to government. But just as one, what does it mean, carbon? First of all, I believe in future it's a capital. It has price, because value on price is in this time not correct, because we consume on the cost from our planet. We don't pay the real price, and in future we definitely will, because we created data and information to use it. And when we use it, we can give carbon a price, and then we will support technologies like Climeworks to do it on big scale. For sure, there are several different projects we have to support, from planting trees to technology, because the technology in the long term will make it possible to put carbon out of air on a really big scale. And we should not only see what we do today, it's more what can we do tomorrow. That's why we are into technologies as well, but not alone, because it starts with the behavior, then with policies, and with these new policies, we make an environment for new technology ready. And at the World Systemic Forum, we think in an ecosystem, on not only in one single market. It's more about the overall system, and that we have to start to think holistically in ecosystems.
Yeah, and I think that the World Systemic Forum that you've created will take place here, in fact, in the Hagerbach Test Gallery, because this is actually where we are creating new concepts and thinking out of the box, and even thinking beyond out of the box, but really about radical changes. Maybe Christoph, do you have something to say about systemic change and how you operate in that context? How do you get your message heard? How do you convince companies and governments to buy into your scheme?
Well, we are heavily profiting from science, which is very good. In the early days, when we started Climeworks, and that was already 11 years ago, actually science was not on our side. There was a very large organization, a very renowned organization. They're called APS, American Physical Society. They are really among the most renowned scientific communities worldwide, and they recommended not to pursue what we are doing since it's too pricey. Gladly, over the last years, the scientific consensus changed, and as of 2018, as mentioned, the IPCC recommended strongly that carbon removal is needed for all modeling scenarios to achieve climate targets. And looking at the journey we have done, looking at the last 11 years, well, in the early days, we were only able to convince by sharing our vision, by inspiring people through our story. And I'm very happy that we were able to do that, and we were able to find early investors in Climeworks walking the path together with us. Today, something exists like science-based targets, where companies commit to science-based climate targets, and in such the story spreads itself more easily, since the science is there, and people obviously do believe in science and like commit or align their goals to that. And in such, we are currently more heavily profiting from the IPCC, from very famous publications, than only spreading our word. Whereas the latter still remains important, and that being a reason, I'm very happy to be here and share with you what we are doing.
I'm very happy to hear that, because it's not always what one hears these days, that the belief in science is big enough to actually reverse the trends of our time. But I'm happy if that works in your case.
Sonia, can I jump in with some questions from the audience now?
Yes, please do so, Han.
Okay.
Thank you.
A couple of questions. I think Christoph, there's some questions on CO2. So could he possibly comment on whether the recovered CO2 or the stored CO2, whether that could be reused in any way? And another question, how much energy is used to capture 1 ton of CO2?
Okay, I tried to repeat, but the acoustics are tricky. So the first question I understood is whether the CO2 can not only store it underground, but whether it can also be utilized, if that is correct.
Yeah, correct.
And that is a very, very good and very important question, and the answer is yes. CO2 can also be used, and actually we're doing that. We use the CO2 before we put it underground, or actually the scientific institute I'm coming from at ETH Zurich is a institute of solar technology, and the vision of the professor there, who is still there, has always been to convert solar energy into solar fuels. And today, all fuels we're burning, or fossil fuels, are hydrocarbons. They consist of C, carbon, and H, hydrogen. And when we burn them, we create CO2, and we create energy that helps us to move around. the beauty of all chemical reactions on planet is that they can go to the right and can go to the left, meaning we can take CO2 and we can take hydrogen and produce again hydrocarbons, meaning fuels. So long story short, we can take CO2 from the air, combine it with hydrogen that was produced by renewable energy, and convert it into any transportation fuel of interest, for example, jet fuel or gasoline. And this is something we're doing. We are, however, doing that together with partners. So we're not doing it only under the Climrex brand, but there are, as for example, a company which we started together with partners called Norsk eFuel. That's a Norwegian company where we're using Norwegian hydropower and convert that together with water and CO2 from the atmosphere into fuels with the target to address aviation fuels in such that aviation is rendered carbon neutral. That is one use case, a very, very big use case. Another use case, which is rather a niche application, but also a very interesting and important application, is for those of you who like to drink fizzy drinks. The fizziness in your drink is CO2. Some people might not know, but like all sparkling drinks contain CO2, and the sparkles are the CO2. Most of the CO2 is today sourced from fossil sources, so you're sort of drinking flue gas when you're enjoying your sparkling drinks. And together with a bottler of the Coca-Cola company, we launched the worldwide first premium mineral water, or well, this water has been existing before, but it's the first beverage worldwide that contains CO2 from the air. It's Malza mineral water in Switzerland. So those are quite interesting use cases that helped us in the last 10 years to gain traction and get off the ground. And regarding the second question, the energy consumption, that is also a very relevant and important question. Like in simple words, there's plenty of energy, or like I think the number is every 2 or 3 minutes more energy in the form of sunlight hits the planet than humanity consumes per year. So there is plenty of energy available. The question is how to get access to this energy. And the beauty of our method is that we can place our devices where there is a lot of renewable energy. And this is our thinking. We are using only renewable energy for our devices. We're not burning fossil energy to power our devices. And in such, our efficiency is quite high. So if we define efficiency as the amount of CO2 we capture from the air per amount of CO2 released again through energy, the number is 90%, meaning per 100 kilograms of CO2 we're capturing from the air, only 10 kilograms are re-emitted due to the emissions of the energy and the materials we're using. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you very much, Christoph. Thank you for answering those questions. I think you're making a very valid point, and I think that's also the point of when we talk about systemic change, that we really need to start thinking differently. And where in the past we look at things like efficiency from the point of view, how much does it cost to produce energy, and what is the result, and things like that. When you talk about renewable energy, you're actually talking about energy that is available for free. We only need to capture it and then put it to use to make a better world in that respect. I have a couple of other questions, Antonia, if I may. One of them is whether the guests can comment on how they feel that underground space can contribute to systemic change.
Who should comment? I'm sorry.
Whether Rudy or Marcella or Christoph can comment.
Marcella might want to comment. Can you repeat the question so the audience knows what? Yeah.
Yes. So the question was, how can we use underground space to enhance the way we use the energy we have available, or more efficiently use it, so that we don't create more pollution, I guess, in other words. So I think that the way we use underground spaces, I mean, underground space can be seen as a huge opportunity, especially when we talk about urban spaces, I think, because there's limited space on the surface with a lot of density. However, I wouldn't say the sky's the limit, but the underground has, well, it does have a limit, but we can still use quite a bit of it. And if we use those more smartly and more efficiently, we can reduce the energy needed above level to do things like commute, to do things like deliver the goods that people need to live above ground. And also we can use underground spaces to move things that don't necessarily need to be on top, like transportation, like obviously all the services, things like parking, spaces that don't require daylight, like shopping malls. And by doing so, we can give the space that is above ground a better quality, greener spaces. Yeah, I think
greener spaces and take more CO2 out of the air that way. Exactly.
Exactly. I think you can have both extremes. So you can have the nature above and the human below, and you can bring. And what you can do as well is all here as well. We have the data centers here, and it makes sense as well for energy-wise because you have constant temperature the whole year, and so you can use it in a smart way, and then you really can bring nature back, and you can have technology below. And it makes sense to have both extremes in the near future.
And that's exactly so. And we actually have a bar guest back here who does very smart things with space. Klaus, would you be able to join us here at the panel? Klaus is the managing director of Scout, and Scout uses Hagerbach as a test bed. Klaus, can you tell us a little bit about your underground green farming initiative that's happening here in Hagerbach?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. So as just mentioned by Antonia, Scout, together with industry partners, is working on underground green farming, where we develop a new concept to overcome the challenge of food security. So basically what we want to do is we use the underground space, the urban underground space, to produce our own food, which can then be consumed above ground in the city by the people. To illustrate this concept, we have produced a video which was shown at the World Open Forum in Abu Dhabi and was also awarded as with the Emerging Idea Award.
Han, over to you and the video, please. So we've seen why we won this Better Cities Film Festival, or not we, but Scout with, and actually together with Ithacus, produced this initiative. And Scout is using, doing a prototype here in Hagerbach on underground green farming. And UN Habitat, the Better Cities Film Festival, was so impressed that it got the Best Emerging Ideas Award. And I want to please invite you to our next webinar, which will be focusing on Scout and Scout's applied prototyping here and other concepts they're working on, which will take place on December 16th. And you will get an invitation from us to join us. Now it's unfortunately time to wrap up. We really want to thank all of you for attending. We had a packed program for you. I think we steered a lot of interesting ideas and thoughts in you, hopefully. We would love you to join our movement, which is called Mission Earth First, which is a combination of the HUS.institute and Scout and Hagerbach and Ithacus. We want to thank also the panelists, Christoph Gebel and Marcelo Rubli, and we want to thank the students from the University of Liechtenstein for attending.
Thank you so much for listening to us. Hopefully see you very soon here at the Hagerbach or at the next forum, or maybe at the World Systemic Forum. This was an invitation to rethink and to reimagine, and everything starts in our head and with our mindset. And we know that we have to change a lot, and this is the beginning of it.
The beginning of the change. Stay tuned and help us change, and be part of it, and visit us here at the HUS. Thanks.
We are Mission Earth First, because Earth counts.